I told Lana I'd been let go, and she laughed so hard she had to wipe her eyes. She didn't even pause before saying, "Maybe now you'll learn how to grill a steak without turning it into jerky." Her mother, Gloria, didn't glance up from her recliner. "You should have spent more time learning how to fix the damn sink, and less time staring at spreadsheets nobody asked about." I stood in the doorway with a banker's box in my hands. 14 years of my life crammed into a cardboard cube. A chipped mug my nephew gave me when he was 6. 2 thick binders from a long-dead client we landed in 2012. My framed CPA license sliding sideways because the back clip was busted. I didn't move. I didn't smile. I just stood there. Lana noticed the silence first. "What?" she said, still grinning. "It's not like they fired you for being too handsome. Quick note, before we go on, tell us which city or country you're watching from." I nodded once and walked straight to the kitchen. Set the box down on the counter next to the coffee maker. I opened the fridge, pulled out the chicken thighs I had marinating since yesterday, and started lining them up on a tray. "What are you doing?" Lana called. "Dinner." "Thought we were celebrating." Gloria snorted from the other room. "What's there to celebrate? The gravy train just hit a pothole." I didn't answer. I was already washing my hands. They thought I'd been fired, that I'd been cut loose like dead weight after years of being the boring guy with the stable job. They figured I'd finally been exposed as irrelevant. They had no idea I'd written my own exit plan, that I'd spent the last 8 months collecting evidence, every cooked audit, every rerouted pension, every rush shipment that C-Mark Logistics billed but never delivered. They didn't know the CEO himself had signed off on payments that led directly to offshore holding accounts. And they sure as hell didn't know Lana's name was on 3 dozen C-Mark approvals. But I did, so I cooked, kept my mouth shut, poured Gloria her decaf without her asking, same as always. Let them laugh, like this was just another punchline about how useless I was. Because before long, the FBI would be sitting exactly where they were now, asking very different questions. Martha York called me on a Tuesday. Said her pension check had dropped 62% with no warning. She was crying, like full-on, breathless sobbing, because her rent and her insulin couldn't both happen that month. I didn't know her well. She'd retired before I got promoted to senior compliance. But I remembered her. Cherry-hard candies on her desk, sweater pins shaped like birds. She used to call everyone Hoon. After that call, I stayed late Thursday night. Told Lana I had backlog, which wasn't a lie, just not the whole truth. I waited until our IT guy left and pulled back up ledgers from 2 years ago, files I wasn't supposed to touch. Buried in one of the custodial entries, I saw a routing tag I didn't recognize. I traced it to a fund structure I'd never approved, then out to a services fee paid to an entity registered in the Isle of Man. The name on it? Wainwright Custodial Trust. Total fiction. That was the start. For the next 8 months, I played 2 roles, friendly ghost at work and silent vacuum at night. I'd forget my phone in conference rooms so I could snap photos of reconciliations. Saved vendor contracts to an encrypted drive I kept in the garage behind a rack of old paint cans. Got real familiar with the way certain executives joked about earning their quarterly magic badge. They made it too easy. C-Mark Logistics had hundreds of invoices tied to warehouse space that didn't exist. Phantom drayage services, duplicate billing for expedited release on containers no one ever signed for. That's when I found Lana's initials on 3 of them. I didn't react, just added them to the folder. Once I had enough to build a case, I needed to get out clean. Not as a snitch, but as someone the company could quietly push out without suspecting why. So I rewrote my own exit. I buried severance language into a policy update I reviewed for HR. Reworded a clause about transitional compensation for mid-level directors, wording just vague enough to apply to me. Then I flagged it in an email like it was a routine cleanup. HR signed off. Didn't even change the draft. 2 months later, the restructuring memo hit. They offered the package I'd written for myself, right down to the health coverage extension and NDA clause. I signed it in 4 spots with a straight face. Agent Marisol Vega from FBI Financial Crimes met me in diners 3 towns over. Always busy, always loud. She carried a black leather binder and a face like she hadn't slept since 2019. We mapped everything. How C-Mark's fake logistics invoices helped funnel pension funds into the CEO's offshore accounts. How vendor chains were built to collapse under audit. How everything looked neat unless you lined up the dates. I wasn't going to be the idiot who blew the whistle too late. I needed to look like an overpaid relic they dumped during cleanup, so I let them dump me. And I smiled the whole way out. I'd come home smelling like burnt coffee and printer toner, drop my keys in the bowl. Gloria always had something to say about how I cut the lawn wrong or salted the driveway too late. Lana kept score of my words, how many when I said them, whether I sounded tired or defensive. So I kept quiet, fixed the gutter when it sagged, re-caulked the upstairs tub when it peeled. When they started talking, I got up, cleared the dishes, and made coffee. Nobody ever asked for it. Nobody ever thanked me either. If I mentioned anything about my day, Lana would cut it down mid-sentence. "You know what your problem is?" she said once. "You think anyone cares about asset reconciliation outside your little cubicle cave." Gloria didn't miss a beat. "He's probably just jealous he can't fake invoices like you can." They both laughed. I remember staring at the coffee pot, waiting for it to fill, thinking, "You'll remember this night later." Behind all that fake peace, I kept tracking C-Mark. I knew the pattern now. How the fake yard storage bills matched dates Lana had approved, expedited container clears. Same-day entries, same dollar ranges, same vendors. Except those containers didn't exist. The warehouse address on 2 of the manifests was a lot behind a shuttered dry cleaner in Joliet. I drove past it twice to be sure. There was nothing there but weeds and a sun-faded sign that said, "Coming soon, Family Dollar." She'd stamp her approval on the same days she ran errands. I knew because I kept every calendar update she posted to our shared account. Client call, might run late. Gloria's doctor, pick up scripts. Except the call logs and the timestamps told a different story. She signed approvals from her phone while watching reruns in the living room. I didn't throw a fit. I didn't ask why. I took screenshots, labeled them by vendor, tracked when the money moved and where it landed. She wasn't good at hiding it. That was the part that stung. This wasn't a woman running a scheme. This was someone who thought nobody was paying attention. And I guess I hadn't been for a while. I wasn't building a big reveal. I wasn't hoping to trap her in some moment of guilt. I was just putting the pieces in order for the U.S. attorney. By that point, I'd marked a day on the calendar. Just a small dot on a Sunday. No label, no note. But I knew what it meant. It was the week before the arrests would land. I walked into my office late one night and stopped cold. Gloria was at my desk with the file drawer open, bent forward like her back didn't hurt tonight. She jumped when she saw me. "Oh," she said, hands still inside the drawer. "I was just looking for a postage stamp." I looked at the desk, looked at the drawer, looked at her purse hanging off the chair. "Stamps aren't in there," I said. She smiled tight. "Well, they should be." I stepped past her and opened the fridge, pulled out water, drank it slow. By the time I turned around, she was already shuffling down the hall, muttering about how dark the house was. After she went to bed, I locked the office door and sat down. The drawer was neat, but too neat. Papers squared up, folders shifted just enough to tell me someone had been inside. I opened the folder she'd touched last. Her statements were tucked inside a manila envelope with no label, brokerage printouts, retirement summaries. I counted twice to make sure I wasn't missing a decimal. $512,000, almost all of it parked in Halbert equity stock. The rest concentrated in a fund I didn't recognize at first. Then I caught the parent name tied to C-Mark Logistics. My stomach didn't flip. It sank. That's when it lined up. Why she'd pushed Lana and me together 10 years earlier. Why she insisted on hosting every holiday. Why she asked casual questions at dinner, the kind that sounded like nothing, until you realized she remembered every word. "How's work? Busy quarter? Any rumors about vendors?" She wasn't lonely, she was listening. I sat there and let it land. Every joke, every jab, every little dig about my job being pointless. She'd been trading on it. I pulled Lana's work email archive next. I already had access. Shared tablet, weak passwords, no caution. Her title read Project Coordinator, which sounded harmless enough. But her approvals auto-routed payments once a supervisor clicked verify. No second set of eyes, no friction. 37 approvals tied to shipments that never existed. Phantom drayage, prepaid yard storage, same-day expedites. She wasn't a mastermind. She didn't design the scheme. She didn't even try to hide the patterns. She just clicked approve and moved on with her day. Careless. Comfortable. Untouchable, she thought. I built a spreadsheet line by line. Date, vendor, amount, approval time, cross-referenced it with payment releases and fund movements. The trail was clean enough for court, ugly enough for consequences. I drafted a short message to Agent Vega. No emotion, no theory. Found familial exposure, approvals tied to non-existent shipments. Suggest classify as negligence unless evidence of intent surfaces. Time sensitive. I attached the file. Then I put everything back exactly how Gloria left it. Squared the folders, closed the drawer, locked the office. I walked into the kitchen, poured myself another cup of coffee, and set a new password on every device in the house. HR called me in at 9 sharp. Windowless room, stale coffee, 2 managers I barely knew. They slid the packet across the table and used the phrase reduction in force like it had weight. I flipped through it slow, signed in 4 places, initialed the margins. Every clause was exactly where I'd put it 6 weeks earlier. Severance timeline, health coverage extension, non-disparagement, the NDA that cut both ways. One of them said, "This isn't performance related." I nodded like it mattered. I rode the elevator down alone. In the parking garage, I lifted the banker's box from the trunk and walked past a dark window. I stopped just long enough to check my reflection, slumped shoulders, blank face. A guy who looked like he'd just lost a paycheck. Good. At home, Lana barely looked up when I set the box down. "That was fast," she said. "They move quick," I answered. For the next 10 days, I played the part. Woke up early, sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and job boards pulled up. Highlighted listings. Took notes I didn't need. Lana liked seeing that. It made her calm. After she left, I drove to a diner off Route 19. Vinyl booths, loud forks. No cameras anyone cared about. Agent Vega slid in across from me every morning with black coffee in that binder. We didn't waste words. We built it piece by piece. Color-coded board propped against the wall of the booth. Blue for pension losses, red for executive approvals, yellow for vendors. 267 employees shorted, 6 executives exposed, 3 outside vendors implicated. C-Mark sat dead center like a bullseye. She tapped the board once. "You're clean." "I know," I said. "Your timing's tight." "That's the point." On the 10th day, she said, "We're ready when you are." I nodded and paid the check. On the 12th morning, I woke up before the alarm, brewed a fresh pot of coffee, not the cheap stuff, Gloria's favorite. I wiped the dining table down twice and laid out manila folders in clean rows. Manifests, bank wires, approval chains, emails printed with timestamps, bolded. I put Lana's approvals on top of each stack, her initials circled in red. At 11:30, I changed my shirt. At 11:45, I opened the blinds just enough for light. The knock came at noon. Agent Vega stepped in first, badge visible but not waved, calm, focused, like she belonged there. Victor Hale followed her inside and stopped short when he saw the table. His suit looked expensive and wrong at the same time, like it had been chosen for a different day. "Afternoon," I said, pulling out a chair. He swallowed and tried to smile. "We can talk privately." I didn't answer. I poured coffee and slid the chair back, setting the table exactly how I wanted it. I'd just set down Victor Hale's coffee when I heard the front door click open. Lana walked in at 2:40 p.m. Her heels stopped short on the tile. She stared straight at Agent Vega, then at Victor, like the floor had just shifted underneath her. "You're back early," I said, calm as anything. I pulled out the chair across from me like we were about to say grace. She blinked fast. Dentist. I looked her in the eye. They're closed on Wednesdays. She didn't flinch. She just sat down like it was any other afternoon. Her purse stayed on her shoulder. Agent Vega didn't waste time. She reached into her binder and slid 3 printouts across the table, 1 page at a time, each landing like a card in a losing hand. March 3rd, May 11th, August 27th, Vega said. 3 C-Mark expedite authorizations with your initials. All 3 tied to shipments that never occurred. Lana didn't even look at them. My supervisor verified every packet before I signed, she said. Her voice had that clipped, annoyed edge, like she was late to something important. Verified fraud is still fraud, Vega said, and negligence doesn't disappear just because you forwarded it along. Victor cleared his throat. He leaned in like we were old friends. Your phrasing, he whispered to me, could make the difference between mismanagement and hard time. We're not enemies here. I turned my laptop around. The spreadsheet was already open. 3 tabs labeled by date range, color-coded approvals, vendor names, amounts, routing destinations. All of it cross-referenced and stamped. I let it sit there, screen facing them, for a full 10 seconds. Nobody spoke. Lana finally looked down. Her face didn't crack. She didn't shout or cry or ask who the hell these people were. She just stared at her own initials, like she didn't recognize them. You had access, Vega said. You used it. Even if you didn't build the scheme, your sign-offs moved stolen funds. Lana looked at me then, really looked, not with anger, not with guilt, just cold, like I'd broken the furniture. I thought we were a team, she said. I almost laughed. Instead, I pushed the spreadsheet forward an inch. Teams don't laugh when one of them gets kicked out the door, I said. Victor rubbed his eyes. Vega closed the binder. We sat there in silence until Gloria's key rattled in the front door. Victor Hale finally broke the silence. He leaned forward with both hands on the table, his voice low and shaky. I have parents in assisted living, he said. 2 kids in grad school. This would wreck them. I didn't blink. Tell that to the people you shorted for 27 quarters, I said. I pointed to a line on the spreadsheet. Martha York, her pension deduction. $1,982 missing every single month. Then I scrolled to a C-Mark yard invoice dated the same week Lana clicked approve. No delivery, no drayage, just a signed line and a wire transfer that vanished offshore. Victor's mouth tightened. He didn't speak again. Agent Vega picked up her binder. Here's the reality, she said. Lana isn't a named target, not yet. But that hinges on cooperation and intent. Lana crossed her arms. Her voice was flat. I just clicked what they gave me. Intent doesn't need motive, Vega said. It just needs action. Willful blindness won't save you in court if you sign 37 false packets. Lana looked at me like I was the one who'd shattered the windows. You knew all this, she said quietly, and you still cooked dinner like nothing was wrong? I stared back at her. You laughed when I lost my job, I said. That's what I remember. The front door opened with a click and Gloria walked in holding a grocery bag. Her smile dropped the second she saw Victor and Vega, the folders, the laptop, the silence. She didn't speak right away, just stared at the paperwork like it might catch fire. Vega flipped to a page and looked directly at her. How much of your retirement is tied up in Halberd equity? Gloria hesitated. Her fingers tightened around the grocery bag handles. All of it, she finally said. $500,000. Nobody said anything. The fridge hummed. The clock ticked. That was it. I stood up, closed the laptop, and tucked it under my arm. Lana didn't move. Gloria sat down like her knees gave out. Victor shifted back in his chair like the table itself had turned on him. I walked upstairs. No dramatics, no final words. Just the stairs, one step at a time, my hand firm on the rail. Let them deal with it. I'd carried this thing all the way to the finish line. I didn't owe them cleanup. Not after what I uncovered. Not after what they did, or refused to see. The rain hadn't let up since Tuesday. On Thursday morning, I came downstairs to the smell of burned toast and Gloria pacing the kitchen, The TV was blaring from the living room. I heard it before I saw it. Crawl, Halberd Equity under federal investigation. 6 executives taken into custody. No mention of me. No mention of Lana. The anchor used words like massive pension fraud and years-long deception. They said a federal probe had been underway for months, that the company's internal documents had quietly built a case. They said sources close to the investigation. That was enough. 3 news vans rolled up before lunch, parked right next to our mailbox like they paid rent. One had a guy sitting on the roof with a camera, just waiting. Neighbors slowed down as they drove by. A few stopped in the street. I saw one of them, Mrs. Connolly, take a picture from her porch, then go back inside. By evening, someone had screen-grabbed Lana's work bio and my old halberd headshot and posted them together like a before and after. I got tagged by a cousin I hadn't heard from in 3 years. Lana stomped through the living room, holding her phone, red in the face. They suspended me, pending review, like I'm some criminal. I kept wiping down the counter. "It's your fault," she snapped. "You made it a story." "No," I said. "The signatures made it a story, and they're yours." She threw her phone on the couch and went upstairs. Agent Vega had already called that morning, told me to stay quiet. No statements, no online comments, no setting the record straight. "You want to stay off the radar," she said. "Let the case speak." So I did. Gloria spent 6 straight hours on hold with her financial advisor. She tried to whisper, but I could hear every word through the ceiling vent. By midnight, she was crying in the guest room, not a sniffle, deep, ragged sobs like something had cracked open. I didn't go check on her. I'd done my part. By Saturday, my phone went silent. No texts, no missed calls, no emails asking how I was holding up. People had already picked a side, and none of them were mine. 9 weeks later, I sat in a federal courthouse with 2 styrofoam cups of coffee and a binder that weighed almost 6 pounds. Grand jury, 2 days, no cameras, no emotion. I stuck to the numbers, routing paths, transfer dates, ledger entries, approval stamps. I walked them through each layer like I was giving a quarterly review. I didn't dress it up or try to make it dramatic. The truth was ugly enough on its own. The defense tried to spin me as bitter, a disgruntled employee, desperate for relevance. The jury heard my HR file instead. 14 years, 2 promotions, 0 disciplinary marks, and spotless audits. They didn't buy the character hit, not with that record and not with those numbers. Indictments landed on 5 of the 6 executives. By the time sentencing rolled around, prison terms stretched between 7 and 16 years. Asset freezes hit hard, but the court-managed recovery returned 81 cents on the dollar to retirees. Better than expected. Lana filed for divorce the week after the final sentencing. The filing used the word amicable, like we'd ever had that kind of marriage. We didn't fight, didn't argue over the house or the cars or the furniture on the back porch. We sat in her lawyer's office with a mediator and split it down the middle. Paperwork took 28 minutes. CMAR cut her loose a week after the hearing. The email said process failure, and they scrubbed her name off the org chart before lunch. No press release, no goodbyes. Gloria didn't say much after that. Just packed up her condo over in Springdale and moved to Nevada to live with some cousin named Nadine. She left me a voicemail that started with, "This isn't personal," and ended with, "I hope you're satisfied." I didn't return the call. I didn't gloat either. The first restitution check from the class action showed up 2 months later. Not a huge amount, but solid. Enough to feel like something landed where it should. I mailed copies to 3 people. Martha York got the first one. I wrote a sticky note that just said, "For groceries," or something better. She'd called me "Sir" while crying on the phone, like I was the only person left who gave a damn. The second went to a guy named Bill, who'd been laid off in 2018 and thought it was his own fault. The third went to a woman named Karen, who once gave me a ride home in a snowstorm and never got her pension back. I didn't need applause. I just needed the numbers to balance. By then, the house was empty. My half of the equity sat in a new account. The porch furniture was gone. So was the frame license. I packed the chipped coffee mug and the project binders in my trunk. No more split-level house. No more background TV. No more dinner conversations that turned into drills. I didn't look back. Not once. I rent a small apartment over a barber shop in Monroeville, 50 steps from the diner where Agent Vega first slid that binder across the table. It's nothing special. One bedroom, low ceilings, floors that creak like they're clearing their throat. But it's mine. No TV blaring, no one grading my dinner. I work freelance now, forensic accounting consultant. A mid-sized law firm down in Pittsburgh keeps me on call when their clients claim the money just moved. I follow it slow, wire by wire, page by page. It's like tracing a leak behind drywall, quiet work, honest if you do it right. The job fits my brain, doesn't drain my bones. Sundays I do my groceries early, same spot, same list. I take my time. Grab the good coffee, check expiration dates, pick out fruit by hand. Last spring, I saw Lana in the produce section. She was with some man in a blue pullover. I didn't recognize him, but he stood too close to be just polite. She saw me, didn't wave, didn't say anything, just looked away. I reached for a couple pears and kept walking. People ask if I miss being married. I miss some of the noise, sure. The weight of a body moving around upstairs. The sound of a second coffee mug clinking on the counter. It's quieter now, and not always in a good way. But I don't miss being made small. I don't miss explaining myself over chicken that wasn't cooked right, or coffee that wasn't hot enough. Some nights, I pull out the letters. Retirees who got most of their money back. Folks who thought they were screwed forever. They write things like, "You gave us a shot or you didn't let it slide." It's not glory, it's ballast. A reminder that I didn't fold. That I stayed in it when the right move would have been to walk out and let it rot. If there's any revenge in all of this, it's simple. The truth had teeth. It bit the right people. And I walked out of that house with my head up, clean, and never had to hear another joke about my cooking again.